Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the anthotype process of printing. A quick definition for you. So the anthotypes are a photographic printing process in which you use a plant material as your light sensitive emulsion to print an image on. So today I'm going to talk about doing that with avocado skin. I'm just going to walk you through the step-by-step instructions without actually doing it. I have things prepared so that you can see what the process is like without actually having to wait for me to do it. So first off, you're going to want to save a bunch of avocado skins. You want to clean them out so that all the meat is gone and it's just the skin. I have 5 avocados in here. But honestly, the more you can save up and put in, the better. And then I just have enough water to cover the skins. So you're going to put your skins in your pot, cover it with water, and bring it up to a simmer on the stove. You do not need to bring it to a boil. It doesn't need to be that hot, but just like a rolling simmer. And once you bring the temperature up, you can go ahead and lower it back down and just let the pot sit with a lid covering it for an hour or two so that the dye is fully extracted from the skin. So once you have your dye stuff ready in your pot, after a few hours of sitting on the stove, I use a strainer and pour it through the strainer so it collects all the little debris that won't ruin your dyeing of the paper. And I put it in these trays. You can use any tray that fits, but I like these because they're really cheap and they're really easy to clean and reuse a bunch of times. So, as you can see, it's sort of like a pinky, orangey, tannish color right now, which is perfect and what we want. The other thing to take note of is the temperature of the dye bath when you put the paper in. It depends on what paper you're using. This right here is a Reeves Platinum paper, but if you're using a handmade paper, you're going to want to make sure the temperature is a bit lower, around room temperature, so that it doesn't fall apart in the dye bath. So I have my dye in my tray and I just slide my paper in like that, like you would for other alternative printing methods if you've taken or if you have experience with those. And I just let it sit for a few hours. You'll see the color strike probably within an hour or so. But I let it sit sometimes overnight too, just depending on how the specific dye bath is reacting with the paper. But yeah, you can check it, and sometimes I flip it over to evenly coat both sides, but honestly that doesn't really matter because you're only printing on one side. So yeah, you put your paper in your dye bath and you let it sit. I usually try to have it sit in a closed cabinet or something like that where there's not too much sunlight, but wherever is convenient for you all. So this is the color of the avocado after it's been dyed. So after a few hours, you're going to take out your piece of paper and it's going to look like this. And once this is done, depending on what you want to print on top of it, I'm going to show you what I did to print this image here. So you're going to want to get a print frame, or if you have 2 pieces of glass, 2 pieces of plexiglass, something clear and hard and flat. Unfortunately, this frame has seen better days, and what I have, I broke the sheet of glass that's supposed to be in here, but this is a piece of plexiglass that I tried to cut with my Swiss Army knife, and it split down the middle. So we're just doing a makeshift demo today, but you're going to take your piece of paper, well, first I'm going to take my negative. So this image is a 4x5 contact print. So I'm not going to take my negative out now because my hands are really dirty. But you're going to take your negative and you're going to place it emulsion side down on the piece of glass outside of the sleeve, obviously, like so. And then I I really like a uniform border on my prints, so I'll cut out a stencil, a rectangular stencil to block out the light to create a border. So I would place that on top of my negative, and then I would go ahead and place whichever side dyed more evenly. So if I wanted to print on this side, I'm going to place, I'm going to place this side down, cover it up, making sure that if you're using a print frame like this, I like to make sure that the print is in the middle of this folding seam so I can open it up and check the exposure without having the registration being moved. So you place it in, close the clamps. If you're using a makeshift print frame, and there you go, then I would recommend taping half of the image or taping it on one side to the one side piece of glass so that you can undo the print frame and check, because the exposure times aren't always exactly the same. It depends on your lighting scenario. So for this specific print, the exposure time was 72 hours, but I did do it in a UV light box. So if I had propped up my print frame against my window, I don't know if you guys can see this, but if I put it up against the window like so, then using natural light, the exposure time would be much longer. So it's really ideal to have your paper and your image set up so that you can peek underneath it to see how the exposure is going. But yeah, that is basically it. There is a lot of room for experimentation in this process, and I mean, I showed you how I do avocado, but you can do so many other dyes. You could do either food related or not. If you have any interest in exploring emulsion types from natural resources, I would look into natural dyeing and the anthotype process. And yeah, thank you so much, and let me know if you have any questions.